standing by for the first court appearance of the suspected shooter at the White House Correspondents' Dinner as investigators comb through new details in his alleged writings.
And severe weather alert across the Midwest this morning. Some 40 million people are in the crosshairs of potentially violent tornadoes, damaging winds, and hail after days of storms have caused more than 50 tornado reports across the plains of the South.
And the royal visit, King Charles kicking off today, a 4-day state visit marking America's 250th birthday. Why some are calling this trip the toughest mission of his reign. I'm Kate Baldwin with John Berman and Sarah Seidner. This is CNN News Central.
This morning, we are standing by for the suspect in the shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner to make his first appearance in federal court. We're learning new details about him and also what happened inside the Washington Hilton. President Trump, of course, was rushed off the stage after shots were heard outside the ballroom. Inside that room, much of the U.S. line of succession, the constitutional line of succession, 5 of the top 6, including Vice President Vance. Overnight, the president told 60 Minutes he was not worried.
I was surrounded by great people, and I probably made them act a little bit more slow. I said, wait a minute, let me see, wait a minute. So, I'm telling guys.
Just at that moment where it looks like you go sort of down with the service, you were telling them to wait?
Well, I know what happened is then I started walking with them. I started walking, and then said, please go down on the floor. So I went down, and First Lady went down also, but we were asked to go down by the agents.
The Justice Department says the suspect ran past the security checkpoint at the dinner, then fired, quote, a couple shots. One agent was struck in his bulletproof vest. He is expected to be okay. A source tells CNN that a Secret Service agent fired back, but no one was hit. The suspect, 31-year-old Cole Thomas Allen, was detained moments later without serious injury this morning. Investigators are combing through his writings, which authorities say he sent to family members just before the attack and expressed anti-administration sentiments. CNN's Holmes Librand in Washington this morning with the latest. What are you learning, Holmes?
That's right, John. So what we know about this man, Cole Thomas Allen, we know that he was a part-time tutor in California, that he took a train days earlier from California to Chicago, then to D.C., where he booked a hotel room in the hotel where the White House Correspondents' Dinner was set to take place. Now, he brought with him a shotgun and a pistol. Those were purchased in the years prior, as well as knives. That was before he rushed the security there at the event, got past that magnometer before he was tackled and taken down. He is expected in court today. He's facing several charges. The D.C. U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro says those will include 2 counts of using a firearm as well as 1 count of assaulting an officer with a dangerous weapon. Now, we know that that officer was struck in the chest, unprotected gear, and will be okay. Now, the writing that you mentioned, there is a general conversation in this writing that we know from Cole Thomas Allen about his disdain for the administration that could come in to court today as he is set to appear before a judge. Now, it's unclear if we'll have a longer hearing, maybe going through some of those facts to keep him detained as we go forward to a trial in the future.
All right, Holmes, this is the first chance we're going to get to hear some of these details. Perhaps we are watching very closely. Thank you for sharing your reporting on this. Sarah?
All right, thank you so much, John. President Trump speaking to 60 Minutes over and praising the quick response from law enforcement during the shooting. Now he's pushing for the White House Correspondents' Center to be rescheduled, calling for it to happen within the next 30 days and demanding a bigger perimeter and more security. CNN's Elena Treen is live from the White House with the very latest. Give us some sense of what the president is expecting here, and, going forward, obviously, the security is going to have to change.
Yeah, look, this was really interesting yesterday. We were learning a lot more about kind of what Holmes was getting into, the suspect yesterday, and also about the security around all of this. One of the key questions that came up yesterday through the course of our discussions with the White House and law enforcement was about that manifesto that Cole Allen Thomas had written, the suspected shooter, where he referred to himself as the friendly federal assassin. And from the conversations I was having Sarah, with people in the building behind me, essentially they were making very clear how it laid out the targets of his operation really was to go after Trump administration officials, and that in that manifesto it clearly laid out that he had anti-Trump and anti-Christian views that he had shared in that. But one of the key things that was a question was the timing of when local enforcement had learned about this, as well as when the Secret Service may have learned about the manifesto, and whether or not they had been tipped off to this. When the White House had talked to CNN and other reporters yesterday, they had said that they believed that the suspect, Allen, had sent this manifesto to his family around 10 minutes prior to this incident. They later confirmed that that is what they believe had happened. But then what we learned throughout the day was that Allen's family hadn't actually shared that manifesto until after the shooting has happened. And that is a key detail because there were questions of whether or not law enforcement had really properly alerted authorities about what was about to transpire. We're learning now that, of course, it seems like they had that information only after this manifesto, only after the incident had occurred. But getting into how the president is viewing all of this, I mean, I think he laid out very clearly during that interview with 60 Minutes last night that he believed that he was very well protected by Secret Service. He felt that, if anything, he said, and you kind of played some of that clip, that he felt like he was the one perhaps who was slowing them down, that he wanted to get a sense of what was happening, and he was very positive in the way that he was describing how they had acted on Saturday evening. Even, of course, as we were hearing so many others, including people in the Trump administration and other allies of the president, saying there was a breakdown in security that night, that this should never have been allowed to happen, and that the suspect should never have been able to get as close to the ballroom as he had when those shots had gone off. And so, of course, there are going to be a lot of questions and I think a lot of internal evaluations going on about how to prevent something like this moving forward, especially, of course, when we have seen that this is not the first time this has happened. The president has now faced 3 different assassination attempts, one of them, of course, being in Butler, Pennsylvania, just nearly 2 years ago. A lot of similar questions from that event coming up now, I think, in the conversations around all of this about how to ensure, particularly at a time when we've seen such rising political violence, that the president is protected, as well as all of the other. I mean, we saw some of the most powerful people in the room on Saturday night, as John laid out, a lot of people who are in the line of succession. So many questions that still have to be answered, and they're still kind of putting together their timeline on all of this, at least from the Secret Service perspective, Sarah.
Yeah, and I think what people may not realize is all of those members of the cabinet walked through on the floor where the shooter was about a half an hour before all of this happened. And so there are questions about security this morning. Elena Treen, thank you so much. Great reporting from you from there at the White House. Kate?
There is new reporting today that Iran has sent